Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order. If you'll all please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation will be given by Reverend A.B. Sawyer. He's the Associate Pastor at First Baptist Church of Fairhope.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of our community, we appreciate y'all very, very much. Let's do bow to prayer, please. And our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here tonight. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings that you have bestowed upon these gathered. We do not take them for granted. In the scriptures you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, that you have established those very authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore I pray for our mayor and for this assembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our time. Grant them a sense of welfare and true needs of our people. Also a keen thirst for justice and rightness. Grant them confidence in what is good and fitting. And grant them the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement. Lord, grant them a personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them tonight, that wisdom would prevail as they address issues that would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved Fairhope. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Sawyer. Okay, Council, first order of business tonight is I would ask you to amend the agenda as we discussed in the work session to add an item 18, which is awarding of a bid for a split fuel tank for use at the marina. Can I get someone to entertain a motion to add that to the agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to add the awarding of a bid for the split fuel tank for the marina. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor of amending the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, that agenda is amended. Council, I'll also tell you that item number 5 will be stricken from the agenda, both at the mayor's request and also at the from the advice of attorney, which has instructed me that that's not necessary. Okay, first order is to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting, the work session, and the agenda meetings which were held, and the special call meeting. Those regular meetings were held on December the 18th, 2017, and the special meeting was held on December 29th, 2017. Do you have any additions, deletions, or edits to those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as submitted.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, those minutes are approved. Thank you, Council. Report of the mayor. We'll say that the mayor, our prayers go out to her. She has an ill family member which she's attending to tonight, and at the last moment it was made it known that she could not attend tonight's meeting, so our thoughts and prayers are with her. So Ms. Mazur, do you have a report from the mayor that you'd like to present?
Council, I have just one thing to do on behalf of the mayor this evening. This is National Mentoring Month, and we have a proclamation to make. Amy, would you like to come up? Amy Risser is the CEO of the Big Brothers and Big Sisters organization and do a great deal of mentoring work. And we are honoring them this evening with a proclamation, whereas our community has a number of individuals who support the mentoring movement, work selflessly to improve our children's odds for success, and whereas we would like to show appreciation for these individuals and encourage other citizens of Fairhope to become mentors, and whereas mentors are an important part of the mentoring movement, where research has shown that children engaged in one-to-one professional supported mentoring programs are more likely to finish high school and less likely to begin using drugs and alcohol, skip school, or to be involved in violence. And whereas in Fairhope, Alabama, there are many young people living in poverty, single-parent homes, foster care, and extended families whom are especially vulnerable children who benefit from the mentoring movement. And whereas January has been designated as National Mentoring Month, where American citizens are called upon to recognize the importance of mentoring, to look for opportunities to serve as mentors in their communities, and to observe this month with appropriate activities and programs. And now, therefore, I, Karen Wilson, as Mayor of the City of Fairhope, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2018 as Mentoring Month in the City of Fairhope. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you very much. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on tonight's agenda is public participation for agenda items only. Keep in mind that agenda items 6 and 7 are public hearings, so you will have an opportunity to speak to items 6 and 7 during such time. If you would like to speak to items 8 through 18, if you would come to the podium, and I'll ask you to speak into the mic and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Billy Wise. I live at 104 Parr Circle in the great city of Fairhope, Alabama. I come before you to address item number 8 on tonight's City Council meeting agenda, establishing an entertainment district for the city of Fairhope. As I understand from my reading of the draft ordinance, it would allow adults who are otherwise allowed under applicable state laws to drink alcoholic beverages to openly walk the streets of downtown Fairhope 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, with alcoholic drinks in shatterproof cups in their hands. I am not in favor of turning the entire downtown center of Fairhope into an entertainment district. This action would not be in the best interest of the citizens of Fairhope. First of all, there are problems of policing and enforcement of state and local liquor laws that would arise. For instance, number 1, how does the city of Fairhope intend to police and enforce in the proposed entertainment district state laws prohibiting the consumption of alcohol by minors? 2, how does the city of Fairhope intend to police and enforce the restriction in the draft ordinance that only those alcoholic beverages purchased within the proposed entertainment district may be openly carried on the streets of town? Number 3, how does the city of Fairhope intend to police and enforce the restriction in the draft ordinance that drinkers may not enter another licensed premises with open or closed containers of alcoholic beverages acquired elsewhere? You know, it would be a simple matter for underage or adult drinkers to pack a cooler full of alcoholic drinks in their vehicle and help themselves to all they want. Would street drinkers be required to gulp down their drink acquired at another location prior to entering a new location? It is extremely naive for anyone to think that there would not be heavy abuse of the restrictions on purchase and consumption of alcohol contained in the draft ordinance. Turning the entire downtown area into an open bar would not seem to contribute to maintaining the character of our charming town, a goal that's been trumpeted by Mayor Wilson since the day she was sworn in. Now, beach communities work hard to attract swarms of drinkers, adult and underage, they don't care, to promote economic growth in their towns. In fact, open drinking is one of the amenities of beach communities. Fairhope is not a beach community. Fairhope prides itself as being a family-friendly town. It's difficult for me to understand how allowing alcohol to be openly consumed on the city streets 24/7 would contribute to a family-friendly environment. Having drunks tripping over the baby carriages or fighting on the city streets does not constitute a family-friendly environment. Allowing alcohol to be openly consumed on the city streets 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, seems to imply that in order to have fun and a good time, people need to consume alcohol. Nothing could be further from the truth. A drunken crowd does not produce a happy outcome for all citizens of the town. In the present absence of an entertainment district, downtown residents already complain about people urinating in their yards. With an entertainment district in place, these residents could add to their complaints now, roving drinkers vomiting in their yards. It was not so very many years ago in the Buckhead Entertainment District of Atlanta, where I moved from 2 years ago, the city found it necessary to move the closing of bars from 4 a.m. back to 2 a.m. Why? They needed to reduce the rash of crimes committed by drinkers in the district. They needed to reduce the noise associated with those people, whooping it up on the street, and to stop the lowering of the quality of life for the residents. Now, this draft ordinance, number 8, on tonight's agenda, proposes to allow open drinking on the streets of Fairhope 24 hours a day. This is foolish in concept and could be deadly in implementation. And
Mr. Wise, I'm going to have to cut you off soon. There's a 3 minutes maximum.
Have I got my 3 minutes? And I've already got there? Gosh, I thought I was talking fast.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm sorry. Adios.
I want to give a clarification to that. Thank you for those comments. Is the ordinance as proposed only pertains to allowing open containers on special events, only those days, and only 1 hour prior to the special event and only 1 hour after that special event. So for instance, there was a special event from 5 to 8, it would be from 4 to 9 p.m. only on that day. It is not proposed 365 days, nor is it proposed 24 hours a day. So I just want to make that clarification. Okay, floor is still open.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I'll wait till I'm
I'll let you two work that out.
My name is Jerry Henry, and I live at 124 Destrehan, and I'm an Auburn graduate, and we beat Alabama and Georgia. Just for the record.
War Eagle.
Where y'all go watch the game?
He's a friend of mine. I'd like to speak also, as the previous guy spoke. One of the exciting things I think at Fairhope is having a downtown district where we can go during Mardi Gras and the parades that we have downtown and have a family-friendly atmosphere. It's exciting. For Mardi Gras, I've invited my 2 granddaughters who are 6 years old, and by they're exceptional, by the way, and I'm not even prejudiced, but anyway, they're very exceptional. But I look forward to them being there, and we stand in front of the First Bank, and there we catch the beads and all that, and it's a fun time. And I know it's a safe time, and I know they're protected. And I know what alcohol can do to a crowd situation and how people go kind of crazy in the middle of being intoxicated and watching things happen. And I think one of the favorite things of being here at Fairhope is having our downtown parades and our Christmas times and that family-friendly atmosphere that's there. And I'm really concerned that the fact of alcohol being a part of that would disturb that family-friendly situation, and it really concerns me. I came from a place where you could not have those kind of parades. because alcohol and other drug-related things made it impossible. And they turned into dangerous kind of situations. That was Selma, Alabama. I love my hometown, but there are things you couldn't do there that we can do here. And so I encourage you not to do that, not to pass that, but to keep that from happening and keep our family-friendly atmosphere as the way it is. I don't want Fairhope Avenue, now listen, this is heavy, to be a Bourbon Street. Amen?
Amen.
Keep it safe.
Thank you, Reverend Henry.
Lizette Norman, 105 South Bayview Street. And I didn't know that I was going to say anything, but I think I'd like to toss out the other side. And the other side is that, no, we're not Pensacola, but I've seen a town go from being dead to being alive and fun. What they did was they did just this. But they did it right. They did a poll. They had, the Knight Foundation did a poll of 45,000 people. And they said, if you could have the perfect town, what would it have? Excuse me. For all the things that they said, the top three were a place for social gatherings, diversity, and aesthetics. Well, I think we have all those in spades, but I also think that we miss out when I think about the state cook-off and how much fun that is. And I get that we will never be Bourbon Street, that we will never be downtown Mobile, and that is not what I want as a lifetime fourth-generation resident here. But I do believe that there's a time when you hold others accountable for their own behavior. And someone drinking out of the back of their truck, shame on them. But someone strolling through town with a glass of wine to look at the lights, or someone enjoying their dinner on the sidewalk of a restaurant, I don't see anything wrong with that. So I'm here to say that I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norman.
I'm Jane Wise, 104 Parr Circle. And I'd like to read the rest of what my husband wrote, if I may.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that
And I
okay?
wasn't cutting him off. I just wanted him to wrap it up. But go,
Okay,
by all
okay,
means,
well,
go
he
ahead.
Okay. You remember the famous line from the movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come? And perhaps we need to look at that where this is concerned also. Mayor Wilson, this was a point that Billy had also made, and that Mayor Wilson owns a bar sitting in the midst of the proposed entertainment district. Does her promotion of the open consumption of alcohol on the city streets constitute a conflict of interest by holding public office? If there's anything that the citizens of Fairhope do not need, it would be an official who would enrich themselves by this ordinance. And on First Friday events, the question is, may merchants in the proposed entertainment district currently who will give a shatterproof plastic cup of wine to anyone who steps through the door of their store free of charge? Does the proposed ordinance imply that any and all merchants who currently give free wine to customers will have to go to the expense of qualifying and paying for a very steep price for a liquor license to allow them to sell alcohol to those same patrons to whom they currently give wine for free? It's just a question. In closing, the benefits of promoting manageable growth in our community are well understood. However, will the opening up of the streets in this manner bring the kind of growth that we want in our town? I think not. This proposed entertainment district will bring far more problems than it does benefits. And remember that what current generations accept with reservations, many times the next generation or the next elected officials will embrace with enthusiasm. I ask that the City Council reject the idea of the entertainment district as proposed in the draft ordinance, item number 8 on tonight's agenda, and I actually agree with my husband on this.
Thank you, Ms. Wise.
My name is Claude Puckett, and I'd like to say I agree with all of the remarks that have been made not to allow alcohol on the streets in Fairhope. And would I be out of order if I said a few words about the Green's property now?
I would ask you to wait till that public hearing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Floor is still open. Is there anyone else? Okay, I will close public participation for agenda items. Remember that you do have another opportunity to bring forth items of interest before the council at the end of the last agenda item tonight. And we will now move to council comments. Councilman Robinson.
Yes, sir. Happy New Year, everybody. It's a new year. It's a new start. I look forward to all of the things that we hope to accomplish this year. I know we'll continue to move forward and do what's right and best for the city of Fairhope. And I just wanted to finish with Roll Tide.
I just wanted to say that the chocolate and champagne event for the Fairhope Library is Saturday, January 27th at 6:30 p.m. You can pick up tickets at the library. Also, I've got some unfortunate news to share that Ed Rodriguez, he was president and CEO of the Coastal Alabama Business Chamber, passed away unexpectedly this weekend. A lot of people in Fairhope probably knew Ed because he was probably better suited for his position than anyone I've ever met, and he was a strong promoter of regionalism. So he had a really good working relationship with the Eastern Shore Chamber, with all the other chambers in Baldwin County, with the Coastal Alabama Partnership. Just a tremendous guy. I was glad to be his friend, and for those of y'all that knew him, unfortunately he did pass away, and they will have funeral arrangements, I believe, this Thursday night. So that'll be in Gulf Shores. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Councilman Conyers. Councilman Boone?
Yeah, I'd just like to say again, reiterate Happy New Year. Looking forward to working with the city on upcoming projects and getting the city moving forward again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Boone. I have two announcements to make. In our audience tonight is a young man who is a Life Scout, and he is working on his communication merit badge on his way to becoming an Eagle Scout. If he is still here, Mr. Jack Marlowe, would you please stand and be recognized? Give him a hand, please. Thank you for attending tonight. Okay, also, we have some honored guests tonight. I want to ask Coach Terry Eby. He is the head wrestling coach at Fairhope High School to come forward along with his seniors on the Fairhope High School wrestling team. They are in their second year, I believe, of competition, and they've had much success, and I'll let him tell you about a special event that's coming up, and we want to invite all of the public to attend.
Thank you, Council President Burrell, council members. One quick change to your statement there. I'm actually the assistant wrestling coach. Our head coach is Blake McDonald, which many people know he's a defensive line coach at the high school. And I'm assisted also by Bob Keyser and Charlie Williamson at the high school. We are in our second season. Tomorrow night, the reason for us coming in, tomorrow night we host Daphne and Robertsdale. It should be probably one of the larger matches of the season. We're trying to gain as much participation in the bleachers as possible. I'd like to have the visiting teams pretty much drummed out so their coaches can't work with their wrestlers. Wrestling is only here in Fairhope for the second season. It's been 4 years here in Baldwin County since they actually instituted it, so we are a little bit behind the curve. Last year we had some really great success. I'm going to introduce the gentleman behind me. I've got Senior Gibbs Cheryl. Gibbs placed first at the county tournament, second at the sectionals tournament, and sixth at state in the first year that he ever saw a wrestling mat. In the middle is Senior Reese Rao. Reese was able to finish second in the county, did not advance to sectionals. We're hoping he was going to do that this year. And then Junior Jack Smith. Now, Jack came to us from another program in Alaska, so he had a little bit more wrestling knowledge, so I can't take all the credit for him. But he took first at the county tournament, first at the sectional tournament, and got up on the podium and took a fourth place finish in state. first year representing Fairhope. So we're hoping that we're going to put him on the top of the podium this year. Wrestling's pretty much an unknown activity in South Alabama. I walk around all the time with my T-shirts and my hoodie on, and people go, "What's that? There's no wrestling at Fairhope. What's that? You can't, wait, huh?" You know, so I spend half of my time just explaining that yes, there is wrestling at Fairhope. It's probably much like soccer was 12 years ago down here. So we are on a huge uphill curve. So I appreciate the time here in front of the council just to get the word out. I know Mayor Wilson's not here, but I think her office was very instrumental this last couple of weeks of getting the word out through social media and doing some other stuff with television and stuff like that. And that's our goal, is just to get as much knowledge about it. As we go forward with the program, we're going to be looking to start club wrestling. We're looking for space and doing those things. I know there's been talks about expansion at the high school and needs for an auxiliary gym and some other facilities. Wrestling is one of those activities. It is pushing the brinks at the school. So as we grow, we went from 23 students, boys and girls, on the team last year. We started with 41 this year. So we've already had a growth, doubling in growth in 1 year. We added 8th graders so that we can start at a younger age. We're behind the curve. We hosted several schools from the Birmingham and Montgomery school districts over the Christmas holiday. They basically came down here, and my wrestlers got to find out that down here it's like golf carts. Up there it's like Formula One racers. It's a huge difference. But Hoover's had a program since 1972. So it's pretty established. We've got a long way to go. So we'll be working at it year by year, diligently, trying to get the youngsters into it. As Spanish Fort's done, they've started a 6 through 12 club up there, and to try to get some of this culture built up and just get the word known and have people come out. And like I said, the social media, I've had a lot of inquiries this week just on what is wrestling and what's going on. We've got social media. It's Fairhope Wrestling Pirates. We are on the school's webpage, so you can see when our matches are. And we will be hosting Daphne and Robertsdale tomorrow night at 5:30. We go into our county tournament at 5 o'clock Friday afternoon, hosted at Spanish Fort. And if you folks have any questions for my guys, since they're here, I'll open the floor to them.
Well, I'm glad to see the young man that moved from Alaska. He's a legend in my house for my son. And I'm glad to see that he does exist. My son knows all of you, of course, and but he speaks of you a lot and talks about how strong you are. So
That's a good thing.
Good to put a face with the name.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, Council.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, with that, we'll close council comments. We will move to agenda item 6, which is a public hearing. This is an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance number 1253, a request to rezone the property of Robert and Debra Green from R1 low-density single-family residential district to B2 general business district. This property is generally located at 415 North Greeno Road, Fairhope, Alabama. You can see those tax parcel numbers and those portions of those tax parcels. Would somebody like to introduce the ordinance, please?
I'd like to introduce the ordinance.
Okay, the ordinance has been introduced. I'll ask Mr. Dias to give us a quick rundown. I believe that this was advertised, and I believe that the owner put some self-imposed restrictions on this property, and then it had to be re-advertised, so now it's being reintroduced.
Right. Thank you very much. What a great gateway, wrestling into planning. That's kind of, they go together sometimes, I think. As was mentioned by the council president, this is a rezoning for the Green Nurseries property. I think it's about 2.9 acres. The current zoning is R1 low density. To the best of my knowledge and research, I think it's been that way since at least 1961. As you may recall from the last public hearing we had, there's been many requests and so forth in this area for rezonings on this property. The address is 415 North Greeno Road. Again, the request is B2 zoning. This was heard by the Planning Commission, who recommended approval of this rezoning. Staff concurs with that recommendation, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have regarding the rezoning. One thing I do want to mention is that currently the property is considered non-conforming. It currently has a nursery on the property. They do have several business licenses that you may recall was discussed at the last meeting for various uses. Because it's R1, all those uses are considered non-conforming, so they're under the section of the zoning ordinance that deals with non-conformity. So just want to make sure we mention that because I think that is an important aspect of this development. One of the things that I believe has been difficult in the past is that, you know, communities change, the character of communities change, conditions changed. And I'll just give an example of Greeno Road in this area. I believe we estimated there's about 24,000 trips on Greeno Road in front of this property of Green Nurseries. That was in 2015, so we've even had additional development since then. That's a lot of trips. To give you a comparison, if you go just south of the interstate on 98, there's 35,000 trips. So to give you a frame of reference, there's a lot of traffic on Greeno Road. And in staff's opinion, these conditions make R1 low density not entirely suitable for this area. There may be other uses that are residential that may be appropriate, townhomes, things of that nature, maybe condos, things that are a little more dense and provide some measure of mitigation to the sound. But in this location, we feel like that R1 has probably passed. That time for that zoning has passed. And to give you an example of that, the Linwood subdivision, which is just south of Green Nurseries, I think it was platted in the 1960s as 3 homes. I think there's 10 lots. There's 3 homes built there, and those were all built many, many years ago. And so obviously, the demand for R1 low density on Greeno Road is just not there. So with that being said, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. I believe the applicant's here and their attorney's here as well. And there was, as Councilman Burrell mentioned, there were some self-imposed restrictions, and I believe they could probably talk about those, and you have those in front of you as well. But again, staff concurs with the Planning Commission recommendation and recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Dias. Council, did you have any questions for Mr. Dias before he sat down? Okay, we can revisit that also as necessary. Would the owner or developer like to address the council?
Good evening. Here we are again. It was actually a year and a week that we first approached the Planning Commission about this rezone, so we're anxious to settle things tonight. I don't have anything to add to what Mr. Dias mentioned to you, but I'll be happy to answer any questions from you.
Would you want to mention those self-imposed restrictions, Mr. Green?
I'd rather if Mr. Dias would mention them.
Okay.
Speaking from memory, I believe they're related to a convenience store primarily, as I recall from those conversations. Those are private restrictions. We deal with primarily in public restrictions from the zoning ordinance matter.
That's why I had asked the owner to specify them.
But best my recollection, I believe it was dealing with convenience stores. Lisa, didn't leave anything
Automotive
else?
Repair facility and dry cleaning business.
So dry cleaning, auto repair, and then the convenience store.
And those were 3 items we have no intention of putting on that property to begin with.
Would those run with the deed, Mr. Green? Does that run with the deed? If it was sold, would those restrictions run with the deed?
I think they would run with the ordinance.
I'd probably like to refer to Mr. Blackburn or Mr. McDowell, but my knowledge is if it's a deed restriction, it would run with the property. It would be conveyed. Each owner would be bound by those restrictions.
They said that the restrictions, and Danny, is Mr. Blackburn right there? Yes. Was there some agreement that they were going to? Was there some agreement that they were going to put that into the deed? Is that correct?
No, it was discussed, and my comment was that it's not necessary because this is an ordinance of permanent operation. And if the council votes in favor of passing the ordinance, then those limitations remain as effective as if there were a deed restriction. So it really would be an unnecessary act.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Green? Okay. All right. We'll open the public hearing. If you would like to speak on this matter, if you'll please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, again, my name is Claude Puckett. I live on Maple Street. I can see the Green's nursery from where I live. You can check with the property that they have at the nursery, and their yard around their house is immaculate. And I think that anything that they will undertake will be in the same condition. I was at the meeting when the board of dividends are getting old. The board of Planning and Zoning Board. The laundry and that stuff was not mentioned at that time. And I hope that you accept the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board. I think that this would be an asset to Fairhope and an asset in the location. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Council, it's customary to lay these over until the next council meeting, unless somebody would like to make a motion for immediate consideration.
I make a motion for immediate consideration. I think the Greens have, it's really a technicality that we're back here. They've already been before the council a couple of times, and the reason it's being represented is due to self-imposed restrictions that actually lessen what can be developed on that property. And I think that otherwise, you know, if it weren't for a recent Supreme Court change, then we wouldn't even have had to come back before the council. And I think that they've been in front of us enough times that I make a motion we waive that.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for immediate consideration. Discussion?
I mean, I think we have now, like Jimmy said, this is not the first time or the second time that we've discussed this. I think, you know, this is an appropriate time to move forward with this and let them get on with it, whatever the ultimate decision is.
Council, we have a motion and a second, so we're still in discussion here. I'm not opposed to this rezoning, and I appreciate the restrictions, but I am a little hesitant in that we don't have an overlay district for that, and there are still some permitted uses in B2, none of which the Greens want to undertake, but we've also told other owners along that corridor that we don't want certain things there, and you know, we can't predict the future, but under this rezoning, some of these things would be allowed, and I'm probably going to vote in favor of this tonight, but I want to say that we have got to get this overlay district done, and we've got to get it done now, because we're going to be hit with some things, and I can tell you that I'm not going to support them. And this, you know, you're setting a precedent by allowing the B2, and I'm a little bit worried about that. The only comfort I have is that I do believe that since we're given the choice, yay or nay on things in the future, we can say nay. But where do you draw the line? Where is the line of demarcation on that B2? For instance, this, you know, and I can't tell them to, you know, put this restriction on themselves, and I don't know that they have any intention of doing it, but you could put a fast food restaurant on this location, and I guarantee you if it happened, there would be a lot of upset people having that in that corridor, and that would be allowed under this. So I have comfort in knowing that they don't want to do that, but we've always said, well, it's not your intentions, it might be the next owner's intentions.
If I
Did you
could-
want to say something?
Yes, sir. Just speak to the overlay district. That's something that I think we're all working towards. You know, there's a number of ways you can do that. We mentioned form-based codes, things like that, that you're really focusing on the aesthetics of the corridor. We're working on that. That's not a, when you start dealing with land use and property and development types, it takes time. It's a difficult process to go through. We are committed to doing that, and I believe we're seeking some grant funding right now for that, to hire a consultant that is familiar and knows what they're doing. This is an important gateway into Fairhope, and we want to make sure it's protected and keep it that way. There are probably some short-term measures we could probably bring forward to address some of the concerns, which we can certainly look at that as a stopgap measure between now and maybe having a full-blown form-based code or a full-blown corridor plan for that area. So there's some things we can do maybe in the short term to help mitigate that, some of the concerns that Council Burrell has, because we also share those concerns as well.
All right, thank you, Wayne. We're still in discussion. Any other discussion? On the vote of immediate consideration, Clerk, will you call out the question?
Council President?
Yes?
Place 2?
Yes.
Place 3?
Yes.
Place 5?
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for final adoption.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for final adoption. Discussion. Okay. Hearing none, Clerk, if you'll call that in the final adoption.
Council President?
Aye.
Place 2?
Aye.
Place 3?
Aye.
Place 5?
Aye.
Okay. Ordinance is amended. Thank you. Okay, item 7 is a public hearing. This is an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance number 1253. This is Article 5, Section B, pertaining to the Central Business District Overlay Proposed Expansion. You see the details on tab 7 of your book, Council. Would somebody like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce it.
Okay. Ordinance has been introduced, and Council, just like item number 6, there was a slight modification to the way that this was proposed previously. And I'll ask Mr. Dias to address those changes and give us a quick overview of this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Council President. Previously, we had changed or altered some of the parking requirements for mixed use. There was concerns were raised about that. We have removed that. The current height limit is and the expansion is what we're talking about tonight. We did remove that parking requirement, the parking changes, which is why it had to go back and be re-advertised. So just to be brief, it's the same as before, 3 stories, 40 feet, and slight adjustments to the boundary to include some areas and take out some other areas that were established neighborhoods that really didn't fit into the category. This was heard by the Planning Commission, and they voted to recommend approval. Staff concurs with that recommendation. What we're hoping to do is encourage mixed use downtown, and also maybe some sites that are right now that are underutilized that maybe could be utilized in a different fashion. And so we feel like this height limitation is 40 feet is appropriate for downtown. We already have some that are reaching that almost. Right now with mixed use, you can go up to 35 feet. So it's not a dramatic change or dramatic difference in the height. This is pretty standard for some cities our size. We've looked at what they call the pedestrian shed, the 5-minute walk. All this fits within that. Also, we've looked at the height to street width ratio. You don't want to have tall buildings in a narrow street, narrow right-of-way. We've looked at those. This falls all well within the normal guidelines of new urbanistic development or TND development. This all fits those categories. Nothing with that sticks out as an issue, and so we feel very comfortable in recommending approval of this change to the boundaries and to the height. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dias, Council? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dias. We'll now open up the public hearing. If you would like to speak to this ordinance amendment, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Brian Britt, 22701 Echo Rouge Lane. There are a number of projects awaiting the outcome of this proposed amendment, several of whom are clients of mine. It also impacts my project at 455 Magnolia. I've spoken to Eric Cortinez about this, and as y'all know, this is really a third reading of this proposed amendment because of having to start over due to the removal of the parking issue. And so I would just ask that the council, I would respectfully ask that you consider suspending the rules and voting on this matter as well, because, and Eric Cortines is here in the audience, and he can elaborate if you had questions. There's a lot of folks waiting on this vote just so they know what the rules of the game are going forward as far as their development project. So I know it's not something we like to do frequently, but this situation is a little bit different from the norm. So if you please consider suspending the rules and voting on this matter tonight, it would prevent a lot of unnecessary delays in projects that are ongoing around town. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Britt. If you'd like to speak to this amendment, please come forward. I always wonder what's the proper amount of time to wait. Okay, seeing no one else. Sherry Lee, were you coming in to speak to this amendment? Seeing no one else, I will close the public hearing. Council discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it last time with the exception of, you know, the parking issue, and if we're keeping the parking the same in the overlay district with mixed use, with residential still being required to provide parking, I'm good with it as is.
Councilman Conyers, any comments?
Just that I think this is the same scenario that the Greens fell under, where we were up for final adoption, decided to make it more restrictive related to the parking, and now because of the amendment to, or because of the Supreme Court ruling, it has to be reintroduced, and so I'd be in favor of suspending with the rules. In this scenario, it's the same scenario as the Greens to me.
Councilman Boone, any thoughts?
You know, I like the ordinance as it was written. I mean, as it was rewritten, a lot better than I liked the first one, so I'm all for this ordinance.
All right, hearing that, as Mr. Britt alluded to, is customarily our procedures to lay it over until the next meeting, but I'm hearing a lot of support for a vote for immediate consideration, so I'll entertain a motion for immediate consideration.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second for immediate consideration. Any final discussion? I agree with what all of you said. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, call the question on immediate consideration.
Council President?
Aye.
Place 2?
Aye.
Place 3?
Aye.
Place 5?
Aye.
Okay, do I have a motion for final adoption?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for final adoption. Discussion. I'll just say that not only has it been introduced, I believe, 3 times, Mr. Britt, I believe that we were looking at this about 4 to 5 years ago, and it got put off for 3 to 4 years, and I'm glad that Planning Commission took this up, and I was even in favor for a little bit taller structure if you included the roof lines, but what you say makes sense on these aspect ratios of height versus street width, and I'm glad that you explained that with some technical detail, because that makes sense. If they were sitting off the road a little bit more, you might could go to 4 stories and say, I certainly think there's a lot of charming southern towns with 4-story buildings, but you make a lot of sense with that. Any other discussion, council? Okay, clerk, you can call the question for final adoption.
Council President?
Aye.
Place 2?
Aye.
Place 3?
Aye.
Place 5?
Aye.
Okay, ordinance passes. Thank you, council. Item number 8 is an ordinance establishing an entertainment district for the City of Fairhope. This was introduced at the December the 18th, 2017 City Council meeting. This would be a motion for final adoption. Do we have a motion for final adoption?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? I'm going to pass the gavel down to Council Pro Tem, Mr. Robinson, and I will second the motion. If you'll take it from there. Councilman Robinson?
Discussion.
Okay, I guess for my discussion, I think that I certainly agree with what Billy and Jane had to say, that I would not at all support this ordinance if it was 365 days a year. I don't think that's what we want in Fairhope. What I think is the difference to me is that this would be just for special events, and really during First Friday Art Walk and Mardi Gras, New Year's Eve, people are, to be honest, people are doing this anyways during those specific events. And what's happening is the folks that are getting punished are the property, well, the owners of the establishments, the different restaurants, because during that time there's such a large volume of people. It's very difficult, I think, for them on a First Friday Art Walk to police who's in and out of the door. Although they would be required to make sure they left with non-breakable containers. I think to limit it to 1 hour before the event, close it down 1 hour after the event, and limit it to some very specific events, I think it just sort of protects the owners of the restaurants that are getting fined. I think there have been some ABC board stings, and it's cost them a lot of money. And like I said, I think citizens and people, guests in our town are probably participating in that during Art Walk, during Mardi Gras, and during New Year's Eve anyways. So to me, it's really more about protecting some of our establishments.
I'm going to echo what Councilman Conyers is saying, that I believe that for me to cast a vote against this is a little bit hypocritical on the part of the city, because in my observance, and the fact that it's extremely limited to special events and extremely limited to when you say an hour before or an hour after, the people that I think that are out there to start trouble and get terribly drunk are probably not even downtown by 9 o'clock, and most of these events would end, by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and so the ordinance would only allow them to drink on the street until 8, 9, 10 o'clock, depending on the event. And so it very much pains me. I have a lot of good friends out there that have spoken against it. One that I respect a lot, you, Reverend Henry. But I see people walking down the street every First Friday. There's no exception, and it's not being enforced. That has nothing to do with the ABC board. That has to do with our open container law. And one of the most vivid examples that I can think of was at Knollwood Park this past spring during one of the concert series there put on by the symphony. There were people out there with nice tables, linen tablecloths, 2 bottles of red wine, 2 bottles of white wine, bottles sitting right on the table. There's nobody willing to go up there and arrest them for that. And so unless we're going to enforce that and really enforce it, and you want that enforced, and we start fining people, giving people citations for that, which I'm not so crazy about going out there and doing that to those people. I think they're used to doing that, and unless we're going to enforce the open container law, I think that we're hypocritical to not allow this entertainment district. I can agree with Councilman Boone and his comments that nothing good happens with alcohol, but I don't think this lends itself to, binge drinking and a bunch of debauchery. I think that this is giving people the right to do what they're already doing. And there were some great questions of how do we enforce drinking by minors? How do we enforce the drinking when they bring it from home? How do we enforce it now? That's against the law now. That doesn't change the enforcement of that law. That is against the law now. So if somebody brings in a bottle to Mardi Gras or a flask, it's not allowed. So my question back to everyone, including this council, is what are we doing now? So I think it's slightly hypocritical to allow that and vote against this. Anyway, those are my thoughts. And it's not an easy decision. I've had many, many people call me and that are against this ordinance. And I've also had many, many people, especially business owners, that want to protect their interests. And they do contribute to this. And I don't think that this is going so far as to destroy our city. And I tell you what, if we had the first hint that it was, I'll be the first one to propose that we eliminate the ordinance. I will be the absolute first one in line to say, let's eliminate it. And since we're going to be here for 3 more years, we can't say, well, the next council meeting may make it worse. I think that this council will be here for 3 years, and we will know pretty soon what kind of impact it has on our city. Those are my thoughts.
Well, I do understand everything y'all said, but my problem and real problem is I just can't understand how we can have a family-friendly environment with alcohol on the streets. I just have a real problem with this. Especially, a gentleman made a comment a while back on how do you explain Christmas with a beer in your hand out on the streets of Fairhope during a Christmas parade. And I hate it for the business owners that they do have a problem, but it's their choice to have this business, and this is the problem you inherited, and I just don't see any reason whatsoever to institute a law to have alcohol out on the streets of Fairhope. Thank you.
You know, anybody that watched the meeting where we brought this up in the work session knows that I've been kind of on the fence about it. I truly don't know or think that this changes much of what's already going on. I really don't know what impact it truly has, but I don't know that it has a positive impact or a negative impact. I don't know that it has any impact at all. But between, you know, because I don't have very strong feelings one way or the other, between last meeting and today, I have interacted with dozens of residents and citizens in the community, merchants downtown, police officers, and the response I've gotten has been overwhelmingly negative in response to this. And you know, I think that's the decision maker for me. I truly hate it for the businesses. And I'm not saying I wouldn't be in favor of maybe revisiting this on a more narrow scale to see how we could maybe make something that works for everybody. But because there's been such an overwhelmingly negative response to this in the short time since we made the announcement, you know, I'm just not in favor of it at this time. And I'm also holding the gavel, so I need to follow up here. So with that said, any other discussion, council? And so we have a motion and a second. So all in favor? No? Call the vote?
Yeah.
All right.
Council
Lisa?
President?
Aye.
Place 2?
Nay.
Place 3?
Aye.
Place 5?
Nay.
Motion fails.
Pass the gavel.
Motion fails. All right.
Motion fails.
We move on. Thank you, council. Thank you, Councilman Robinson. Item number 9 is a resolution that the city votes to procure additional on-call professional consulting services for construction plan review by the International Code Council for the Building Department with a not-to-exceed cost of $30,000. Mr. Cortines?
Thank you, Council. This is a renewal of a services contract that we did last year. The International Code Council is the code writing organization for the United States. They have an office in Birmingham, and one of the services they offer are plan review services for building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, construction drawings that come in. I have really one. We did about 5 projects last year. They reviewed the Three Circles Church expansion for us. They did the First Baptist Church expansion plans for us. To make sure that you're aware, the apartment plans for the retreat at Fly Creek were brought in just before Christmas. And that's really the last major project that I know of on the horizon that I would like to have them take a look at. So I need to, since they are already a vendor for the city, I would like, instead of having to bring everything to you individually, this would allow me to issue purchase orders for any of those projects that we're choosing to send to them. One of the things in doing this, Council President and Council, is trying to keep this under, what we're doing is comparing the cost of outsourcing some of these large plans versus what it would be to actually bring someone on and actually look to add staff. I don't want to do that unless we absolutely have to. We're kind of subject to the ebb and flow of how construction and development goes, and if we have things slow down, I don't want to be in a position of having to let people go unless it's necessary. So I'd like to use this as a stopgap to help us keep from being in a position of having to add staff.
Hang on there, if you don't mind. Council, any questions for Mr. Cortines? I have a question for you, Eric. How much longer, how many more times do you think you'll come back and?
No, yes, go ahead.
In July, there was 40,000. Now this would bring the total to 70,000.
Sure.
Going to there, so that's in a span of 6 months, $70,000. And I understand that, by the numbers you gave at the work session.
Sure.
Just thousands of inspections and hundreds of permits issued, hundreds and hundreds. And maybe even 1,000 permits, 5,200 permits.
5,200 permits,
5,200, okay. Now, I understand that, and I understand that your desire to save the city money by not adding people to the payroll, but is there an end coming to this?
There is, and we're only using this for the very large-scale projects that we've got coming in. The plan set for the First Baptist Church was about 125 pages long, plus a 700-page spec book. Same thing for the Three Circles Church project. And also, to clarify, our ordinance and our permit fees, we collect a plan review fee as part of that schedule. In every instance, except for one, we are going to collect a plan review fee based on the fee in the ordinance that's in excess of what we've been billed by the ICC. We had one where, and we actually changed the ordinance when we did that the cost of the plan review is either per the ordinance numbers or the cost of the third-party review. So every bit of what we have spent or will spend is going to be reimbursed. I can tell you now, this is the last of the really large-scale projects that I know of that's on the horizon, and I don't know of any others that I would be interested in sending there right now.
Thank you, Mr. Cortines. All right, you've read the resolution. Council, I entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any final discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, Council. Item 10 is a resolution that the City Council approves the selection of Bay Nursing for professional health services by a licensed RN for the Fairhope Municipal Jail, and hereby authorizes Mayor Karen Wilson to execute the associated contract with a fee of $93.50 per visit for RN up to 2 hours and $40 an hour for any time over the initial 2 hours. Bay Nursing Incorporated was the only response received for these services. Lieutenant Sledge.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good evening.
Council President, first of all, what this is just a renewal. It was a renewal that probably was done 10 years ago with a lot of upgrades. So the renewal that we had to do for this contract is really to our advantage. We made some changes that should have been made a long time ago. Like I said, everything about this is going to be a plus for the city as far as the health and welfare inmates incarcerated in the city jail.
Any questions for Lieutenant Sledge? I'd just like to add, that seems like a really reasonable price for someone that might be there for up to 2 hours. They may see, multiple inmates.
Yes, and they can come there and they'll be there an hour minimum. But we were paying a lot more money for other fees, and then we weren't guaranteed some stuff that we should have had in there as far as doctor's appointments and stuff like that. It was a lot of upgrades made to it. We had to send out the RFQ, and what we originally found out that the contract had a bunch of flaws in it because it wasn't properly reviewed the first time it was did. So we know for a fact that it's done right this time, which is a plus for us also.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion to approve this selection.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, council. Item 11 is a resolution to award the bid for Internet Services 2018 per the request of the IT Department for the City of Fairhope to Southern Light LLC with a total bid proposal of $30,007. Did I read that wrong, clerk? That's changed. I'm sorry. It is $30,780 annually, but is actually 3 years total for a total of $92,340 for 3 years. There's not a 1 year and then 2 additional 1-year options. So you would be voting on a 3-year contract for a total of $92,380. Mr. Montgomery? Quickly.
Right, so this is providing 2 connections for us. This is first providing just a general internet connection for the city for all the employees. The second is a point-to-point connection between Quail Creek and the in the city, bringing Quail Creek onto the local network. And we've trying to change things up a little bit this year. We've had a lot of issues past, I've been here 6 years, we've had issues there every year. We've tried different vendors and we cannot get a stable connection. So Southern Light is going to run fiber out to Quail Creek and provide us with the bandwidth that we need in order to have a stable connection out there.
And that's for the city internet, like at the golf course only, right?
Well, at the golf course, it works a little bit different. It's a point-to-point connection. So it brings Quail Creek onto our local network, and then they use the city connection for internet. I probably had to bring out a chalkboard for that. But
well, what the reason I'm asking that question, Mr. Montgomery, and Council, I would encourage you to go back to tab 11 in this. If you look at options 3 and 4, option 4 is the one that's being recommended, and that's $30,780 annually. If you look at option 3, you get the same service, 150 megabits per second.
It's not the same service. You see with the +5 there.
Well,
That's
I was going to get to that. There's a
I'm
difference
sorry.
of only 5.
I apologize.
It's only a difference of 5 megabits per second only at Quail Creek, but the price nearly doubles.
right.
That seems excessive to me, Mr. Montgomery.
No, I know it does, and it will. It's the reason why it is higher is because we have to pay for the build out of the fiber to Quail Creek. They've built it into the cost of the internet connection.
Does the golf course really need 10 versus 5?
Absolutely, because we're bringing phones, we're bringing internet connection, plus all the local applications that we have, like our Munis system, email, that type of thing. Just a side note, I was able to cut $800 off the phone bill for Quail Creek by switching them from digital to analog. So hopefully that'll offset some of that cost. After the 3 years, the price is pretty much going to cut in half.
Okay.
Since we've already paid for that fiber to be built out to the location, the price will drop after
Then
3 years.
Need 50. They'll need 50 in 3 years.
50.
They'll need 50 megabits per second.
Funny you bring that up. I spoke with my account rep at Southern Unity Fiber. It's hard to get used to saying that now. They're going to bump us up to 150 megs for that Quail Creek connection and 200 megs for the city connection. No extra charge.
He's willing to do that?
He's willing to do that. That'll basically give us pretty much land speed, which would be great.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Montgomery? All right. I'll entertain a motion to award this bid.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award the bid for internet services. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, item 12. So a resolution, the City of Fairhope votes to purchase 2 portable self-priming pumps for the sewer department. The items are available through the Houston-Galveston Area Council for direct procurement, therefore does not have to be let out for bid. They've already been nationally bid through the bid process. The cost for the 2 pumps is $72,064.30 with an estimated freight cost of $2,700 for a total estimated cost of $74,764.30. Mr. McCrory? Very quickly now. We're getting to the very, very, very quickly stage here.
Very quick, these are self-priming bypass pumps for our lift stations. Currently, we have none. In the case of emergency, we're scrambling trying to find some, so they're included in this year's proposed budget. That's about as quick as I can.
Are these portable?
They are portable. They're portable diesel-driven pumps.
Okay, that's, so they can be taken to any of these lift stations?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. McCrory? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for this purchase.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, resolution passes. Thank you, council. Item 13 is a resolution of the City of Fairhope vote to purchase annual inspections for the fire trucks for the city fire stations from Sunbelt Fire as a sole source distributor and service provider for E1 products for our region, and authorizes procurement based on the option allowed by the Code of Alabama under contractual services and purchases of commodities for which there is only one vendor or supplier, or contractual services and purchases of personal property by which their very nature are impossible to award by the competitive bidding. The total cost will be $11,576 for servicing and inspections. Mr. Saraceno.
Yes, sir. This is something we do every single year. The inspections are done, make sure all the fire trucks are working okay, the pumps are working okay, keep our public safe, and take care of business.
Okay. Council, any questions for Mr. Saraceno? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the purchase, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Purchase is
Thank you,
approved.
Council.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Item 14 is a resolution of the City of Fairhope vote to purchase roll-up and walk-through doors for the water department with a total cost of $8,539. I'll entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the roll-up and walk-through doors. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, resolution passes. Item 15 is a resolution of the City of Fairhope vote to purchase electrical repairs at the marina after Hurricane Nate for the electric department with a total cost of $10,200. Council, any questions for Mr. Wachina? We talked about this a little bit at the work session.
No.
Is this part of a grant?
It's refunded by FEMA.
Okay. We pay 20% of the $10,200?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Wachina?
This is just a collective, two small bids or quotes for one to replace or remove all the under-pier lights on the, I think people call them fishing lights or whatever. It's to remove all that infrastructure. The original build-out was the lights were actually mounted, surface mount to the under the pier in the very middle of the pier, and it requires a boat, a ladder, a glass calm day to do any maintenance. So we're electing to remove those and mount them in a more feasible manner, and the remainder is the labor to rewire the marina.
And council, our portion of that would be 12.5%. Says grants 87.5% of that.
Correct.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve these repairs.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Item 16 is a resolution of the City of Fairhope vote to purchase Civic Center light dimming system for the Community Affairs Department with a total cost of $5,416.85. I will entertain a motion for this purchase.
So moved.
Second.
I have two motions in 1 second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Item 17 is appointment to the Education Advisory Committee. The nominee will be for a 3-year term. This was given to me by our EAC liaison, Councilman Brown, who's not with us tonight. The nominee is Mrs. Robin Coleman. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Appointment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the appointment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, appointment is approved. Thank you, council. Item 18, which was added at the beginning of the meeting, was to award the bid for a split fuel tank for the marina at 555 South Section Street. This was the 10,000-gallon split tank, 5,000 diesel, 5,000 marine fuel for $62,285. I will entertain a motion for approval of this purchase.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, purchase is approved. Thank you, council. And last but not least, public participation. If you have anything else to bring forth before the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Tookie McLeod on Quail Creek. I just have a question. These horrible stobs that you see, these white with orange full-foot things and everybody, along the roads and everything from, I think it's Southern Light. Is that going to, when it goes to Quail Creek, is it going into the residential area in the yards?
I can't answer that question. Did staff leave?
There's one if you on Thompson Hall just before you go on to turn left. What is that? Not Whispering Pines. What is that street? Windmill. On the right, there's one in that yard, but they're all over Creation and they're horrible looking.
I think you're referring to the marking stobs for the underground.
Is it Southern Light?
Locate.
I don't know, but you're seeing them all over Creation now. They're white with orange tops, and they're about this tall. I just think I would object to that in the residential area. I'm not sure, and I would like for you to check that out.
What I would ask is if you will give your information to Ms. Mazer, she will instruct the mayor or ask the mayor to ask the staff.
I may be completely off, but I think it's Southern Light that's doing that, and it's really objectionable in the residential areas. I've seen them in yards. It's okay on the main roads, you know, in the right-of-ways. That's no problem, but
rather than
should be considered.
Answer, I'll ask you to get an official answer, and we'll get you some information on that. Will you come forward? Pardon?
I want to just make one more
comment.
comment.
Will you come to the podium? I'm sorry.
I know everyone in this room really appreciates what we have here in Fairhope. And I'm very thankful that we're here. We are concerned as we see some changes being made. And one thing that maybe could be a guide for us is what legacy do we want to leave for Fairhope? We want quality of life, not entertainment. And this, of course, goes back directly to the open container that we're talking about. And I don't know, Billy got the information from somewhere to find out the information on it so that then he could express his feelings about it. But apparently what he got was not correct. But he does really know how to read, and somehow, you know, the extent of it was confusing. But even extending it, what to me, to us, I think I can speak for both of us, what you're doing is extending something that will grow. It's almost like it's evolutionary. It's like it does not stand still. It does not. So I ask again, I know this will come up again, and I appreciate, of course, those who agree with us. We all do that, right? We all appreciate those who agree with us. But I would just ask that you consider the legacy that you're leaving for this wonderful small town in the South. And it's unique. And like I said, we appreciate being here, and I'll go.
Thank you.
Good night.
Anyone else? No, I was going to say, you might be the only one that hasn't spoken tonight.
I wouldn't say anything.
Okay. All right. I'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.